Hey bees, Marie here from Humble Bee and Me, and today we're making deodorant. This video is a request from Kamasha, who wanted a deodorant DIY video, so here we are. We're going to be working from my clay, cocoa, and shea all-natural vegan deodorant recipe. Now you might be wondering, isn't all deodorant vegan? Like, have you ever seen bacon in a deodorant recipe? And so, no, I have not. Could be good. So this deodorant is vegan because it doesn't contain any beeswax, but it doesn't actually contain any wax at all. It's entirely made and thickened from stiff butters like cocoa butter, which is really hard. It's just like a bar of chocolate, really. And shea butter, which is thick and sticky and actually has a higher melting point than cocoa butter, despite being softer when you touch it. So cocoa butter and shea butter both have melting temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius, which means they're pretty darn good at keeping things solid at room temperature when used in high concentrations. Now, you might be thinking, 30 degrees, that is a temperature that happens in the place that I live. And you would be correct, that happens in a lot of places. You'll be happy to know I traveled with this deodorant and I took it to Costa Rica and it was regularly 30 to 35 degrees Celsius and it did great. It was softer, but it did not liquefy. So don't worry about using this recipe if you live somewhere warmer. After we have our base of lovely butters and oils, we're going to add a couple powdered ingredients to them so that we are not just making body butter. Baking soda is our active ingredient. It's what really makes this a deodorant. It's an all-natural deodorizer, sodium bicarbonate. You probably already have some in your kitchen for baking with, or perhaps in your fridge to deodorize your fridge. Don't use that baking soda. That baking soda is busy. Get fresh baking soda. The other two powders that we are using are clay and arrowroot starch. If you don't have arrowroot starch, use cornstarch or wheat starch instead. Totally fine. When it comes to the clay, there are lots of different clays out there that you can use, but you really should use white Kaolin Clay. If you take a look at the blog entry and you see the original photos, you'll notice that this deodorant is brown in those photos. That is because I used a brown clay that it was more or less my skin tone when dry, which unfortunately stained a couple of my favorite dresses. I'm apparently not a very fast learner. So yes, go with the white clay. It's a significantly better choice if you wear colors other than black. After we have all of our ingredients, we're just melting everything together and then giving a good old stir as it cools. It'll eventually thicken enough that the powders will stay suspended. At that point, we're gonna add our essential oils and we're gonna transfer our deodorant to a tube or a tin. Okay, come on, let's go make some deodorant. We'll start with our butters. We've got cocoa butter, shea butter, and coconut oil. And so we have 15 grams of cocoa butter, 8 grams of shea butter, and 10 grams of coconut oil. Now you might be thinking that these look a little scant. They are. I'm actually making a half batch of the recipe today, but I'm giving you the original measurements that are in the recipe on the website. So just so you know, if you think you're measuring everything out and you're thinking, geez, that looks like twice as much as I need, that's exactly what you want. So for the cocoa butter, I've used beautiful unrefined cocoa butter. It still smells like chocolate and it's lovely and brittle, and you can see that it's not melting in my hands, and definitely best measured by weight because, I mean, how many teaspoons is that? I have no idea. For shea butter here, I've used the refined shea butter, which is why it's white instead of a sort of beigey color. And then for the coconut oil, I've used extra virgin organic coconut oil that still smells like coconuts. It smells incredible. It really makes me want a pina colada. So what we're going to do with these oils, we're going to put them in a Pyrex Measuring Cup. My favorite spatulas make yet another appearance. And in goes the shea butter. And the cocoa butter. So what we're gonna do with this to melt it is pop it in a water bath. So I've got a small saucepan here that has about 2 centimeters or a little less than an inch of water in it. And so we'll just place the Pyrex Measuring Cup in this saucepan. And then I'm gonna go put this on the stove top on about medium heat for probably about 20 minutes, and the water will heat up and will melt our oils and butters, but because it's insulated in this water, it won't get too hot and we won't risk burning anything. While we're letting our butters melt, we'll weigh out our powders. You'll need 8 grams of white Kaolin Clay, 9 grams of baking soda or sodium bicarbonate, and 6 grams of either arrowroot starch, wheat starch, or cornstarch. 20 minutes later, we've got a nice pot of liquid oils that smells wonderfully chocolatey and coconutty. So we're going to take the measuring cup out of the water bath and make sure to dry it off. It will have some water on the outside of it, and we don't want to incorporate that into our deodorant or it can shorten the shelf life of it. And now we wait for this to cool. This is going to take a while because there is no wax in here, which is what helps things set up quickly. So don't be afraid to walk away from it and come back every 15 or 20 minutes to give it a stir and check on how it's doing. So this part's a little bit dull for sure, but you can definitely get some other things done around your house as you wait. So the waiting begins. So it's been half an hour, and you can see that it's still quite liquid, but when I go around with the edge of a spatula, you can see it's thickening a bit, right? It's definitely not water thin anymore. But yeah, this is half an hour. So get a good book, find a chore you need to do. We got some waiting. Okay, it's been an hour now. Still getting, it's pretty liquidy, but starting to thicken up. You can start to see that it's leaving a trail behind the spatula when you drag it through. But definitely still needs some more time to thicken. It's now been an hour and a half, and you can see that this is starting to become viscous, and it's actually starting to get thick enough that it's coating up the sides when I give it a sort of vigorous stir and starting to incorporate some air bubbles. So we're going to add our powders now. This will still need more time to set and thicken up, but we'll get the powders blended in and start working on any clumps that might form. So we'll start with our baking soda and give that a stir. Now, one of the things that I love about these spatulas is because the ends are so flexible, you can see I can kind of bend it across the bottom of the measuring cup and really smear out and bust up any clumps. And the baking soda is reasonably prone to clumping, and it probably would have been a good idea for me to press it through a sieve before I did this, but I didn't, so that just means more stirring. You bring them up on the side to the clumps, that definitely helps with breaking them up. All right, now we will add the clay. So here's our white Kaolin Clay. That's not totally smooth, but we will add the Arrowroot Starch to get the rest of the powders in there now. So the addition of the powders really has helped this thicken up a bit, but you can see it's still definitely not deodorant texture, but we are starting to get some thickening here along the edge of the blade. So when that starts to happen, it's important to start scraping the sides of the spatula off and then bringing them back down into the mixture and breaking those clumps up so that we get a fairly even thickening. Okay, this is actually starting to be sort of a cake frosting sort of texture. That's great, so we can look at adding our essential oils now. For our essential oils, we'll be adding 12 drops of lavender essential oil, 3 drops of bergamot essential oil. And so you can see that this is bergamotine-free bergamot essential oil, and that means that the photosensitizing compounds in it that usually make citrus essential oils photosensitizing and not a very good option for skincare products, those have been removed. So you can safely use this on your skin and not worry about getting a sunburn. If you're the kind of person who doesn't sun your armpits very often, you can probably get away with just using normal bergamot essential oil. And then we'll add 1 drop of peppermint essential oil. And I really like this Peppermint Supreme essential oil from New Directions. It's perfectly pepperminty. And then we'll finish that off with 5 drops of dark patchouli essential oil. All right, so we've got lavender, 12 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. And which one is this? This is peppermint. 1 drop of peppermint. 1 drop. Here's the patchouli. I need 5 drops of patchouli. Ooh, this is one sticky lid. Ooh. See if the dishcloth trick helps. Ugh, yikes. Come back to that one later. We've got 3 drops of bergamot essential oil. 1, 2, 3. I'll get those blended in. So you can see that this is actually really thickened up quite a lot in just a few minutes now that we've got the powders in there. Give that a good smooshing for a scientific term. Now, if you'll give me a minute, I'm gonna see if I can get the lid off that bottle of patchouli. I did it! All right, 5 drops of patchouli. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get that blended in. All right, so this is sort of scoopable, transfer to a containerable texture. And remember, this is a half batch of the recipe that I'm giving you the amounts for. So if you're making this and you're thinking, good heavens, why did I get so much more than Marie? That's why. So I've got this little container here that we're gonna be putting it into. So this is a 1 ounce push-up container from Sapphire Blue. It's got a screw off top and the bottom here pushes up, pushes down. Pretty handy for deodorant. These are also great, these deodorants in tins. So I find, I kind of want to scoop this up here, and then we'll sort of smear it down and in, and then wrapping it on your countertop will help knock it down the tube. And repeat. These spatulas are amazing for getting every last bit of your concoctions out of your containers and into your packaging, which means much less cleanup, which I appreciate immensely. Okay, so you can see that I didn't quite fill this container here, so I'm actually just going to give this a little push up and a little sort of pat down and smooth out here. And that's basically it. We're gonna leave this to set more. Please don't put it in the fridge. I found that really negatively affects the texture. It'll actually really soften up and won't come to the full hardness that we wanted. Can't explain it, but I've had it happen and readers have had it happen. So yeah, just have some patience, leave it out, You'll find that the next day it's a much firmer texture. You can definitely use it now. It'll be extra creamy, and yeah, you just made deodorant. Let's cap this bad boy and you can pop a label on it. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe for more great videos and tutorials, and see you next time.